Hello, hello, hello. I want to show you the other rock. This is the other rock that I found. These are agates, I think. Found this at the beach. And it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ocean art. I love it. It is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm glad that the days are getting longer. I can go and continue this painting. I want to finish this. I want to hang it up in the hallway. Very healing. Amazing, amazing crystals. Opaque, transparent crystals that are inside. But I would never cut a rock open because the rocks, they don't want to be cut open. They contain a soul. They are products from the infinite cosmos. And they're very, very healing. Very amazing. And I also want to show two products right now by Dr. Hauschka. This one here is the More Lavender Calming Body Oil, which is absolutely amazing. It's very smooth. Smells heavenly. It's quite strong. Can actually be used as an aromatic oil, natural perfume oil. Yes, these products are amazing. They come from biodynamic gardening. They have their own gardens, their own organic. Biodynamic is the highest standard of organic farming and growing. Papa Dog, all right, there you are, Papa Dog. What is going on? What is it, Papa Dog? What is it? What is the Papa Dog doing? What is happening? Yeah, Papa Dog, here, I got Dr. Hauschka for you. Here, come. Check that out. Dr. Hauschka? Yeah. Yes, I think he likes it. Yes, see? He licked his mouth. So, Papa Dog licked his mouth. Yes, when they lick their mouth, when you show them a perfume oil, natural perfume oil, and they lick their mouth, that means they like it. Papa Dog, oh my gosh, it's hard to get on the couch, yes. But you did it. You did it, you made it. So I figured out how to make this, how to set up this tablet a little bit higher. I'm using my other camera stand. And I put the other camera stand into this camera stand, and now I have a better height. So this kind of avoids the view from below onto my big fat wobbly chin. So this is a little bit more pleasant, you know. So these products are absolutely amazing. And here is the other one. So here, just want to show two products right now. I can't carry all of these at once, but I have more, and maybe I'll make part 2 tomorrow, and maybe I'll show the concealer and the mascara. Those are really great from Dr. Hauschka. They have an entire makeup line, so they are owned by Veleda. Agate in Germany bought this company because those are the only two in the world that sell, as far as I know, that sell biodynamically made and grown plant products. So they are both based on Rudolf Steiner's cosmetic making and medicine making philosophy. And so those were the only two, as far as I know, in Germany at least. And so they were competing with each other. And this one is a little bit more expensive. That's why Veleda was kind of selling more than they did. And so then Veleda got so big that they were able to buy Dr. Hauschka eventually. That was like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something, or 10 years ago. And but they both companies, both production lines are based on biodynamic plant growing and orchards, and it's in a biodynamic life cycle. It's very amazing. So these products are cruelty free and they're all natural, all 100% from planet Earth. And this one here is also very smooth, very smooth. And they are amazing. It will make you high to smell this. I'm not sponsored for anything that I promote. But I promote some things that are, yes, Papa Dog, it's boring. Yes, I promote everything that is good for the planet. I wish you could smell. This is so incredibly amazing. Lavender Sandalwood Calming Body Cream. I highly recommend this, and Dr. Hauschka, they also have the makeup line, and Veleda doesn't have makeup. Veleda focuses on body lotions and creams and stuff like that. They also have homeopathic medicine, and this production line, they also include eye makeup, face makeup, and so on. And I will show 2 products tomorrow in my other video, and I will make my videos soft spoken from now on. I already tried to make them more soft spoken. Sometimes I wasn't succeeding with it because sometimes I get emotional or I get angry when I talk about certain things. So, but I want to really practice this from now on, and even if I talk about politically incorrect and politically difficult to digest things, I want to keep my voice soft spoken and calming. And I also want to keep the subjects calm if possible. So this is very nice. I like it a lot. Yes, Papa Dog, it is boring. It's not much to do. We have the polar vortex here now. Snow is staying on the branches of the needle trees. It is amazing. This has never happened before. And it's not amazing. It's not a good thing, because these are effects of climate shift and catastrophic climate imbalance on planet Earth. Okay, so what happened, as Paul told me what happened, because of global warming, like general global warming, the ice in the polar regions are melting. They're melting very gradually, but fast enough to create an ever-increasing exponential climate imbalance on this entire planet. And this climate imbalance creates an entire domino effect. It's like a cascading effect from one thing to the next. I talked about this before. We have bark beetle invasions because of this. We have mold invasions. We have immune dysfunction in plants and in others, in insect species as well. It's an entire cascade of events that are happening that are quite dangerous for this planet. So it's very scary, all of that. But we'll try to make the best out of it and live as good as we can and educate people on what's going on so that people know not to buy certain products, not to buy gasoline cars anymore, or trucks or vans, but instead buy Tesla and any kind of electric vehicle. And that's why Elon Musk doesn't patent anything, because he wants people to steal his inventions. He wants them to do it. Because he wants to promote this. He wants people to create electric machines as well, to get away from the fossil fuels. He does that for planet Earth. He could have retired a long time ago after creating PayPal. Could have retired. He could have bought himself an enormous paradise island somewhere in the tropical zone, somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico or something, and retired and would have never had to work again. The reason why he works like more than 20 hours a day, hardly gets any sleep, is because he is very concerned about the planet. He's very concerned about Tesla and SpaceX. Very concerned about creating things that will save this planet and also get people to the moon, space station, and to Mars. So it's very important to him. He actually wants to. He wants to save life on Earth. He's the one who does the most for that. He does the most to save life on Earth, all life. He also wants to save the human species, and other species. He's the modern day Noah. He wants to build an Ark in Noah. A huge, huge, huge spacecraft that will take 200 people and many animal species to Mars and create a biosphere there and get the terraforming of Mars started as soon as possible. So that is what he wants to do, because it has to be started the sooner the better, because it takes a long time. It takes about 100 years to terraform Mars so that people will actually be able to go outside, and they'll still have to go outside with some clothing that has very strong UV protection and hats and all of this, but they will be able to already expose their skin to the air, and there will be already oxygen in the air, in the atmosphere. It takes 100 years. And they have to start with mosses, and they use mosses that grow in very high altitudes where there's much less oxygen, much less. In altitudes where people could not survive, where you'd have to go there with an oxygen tank. And there are mosses that survive that. So, and they send out oxygen. They have photogenesis as well. They have that oxygen producing metabolism that they do through the sun. But it's in minute amounts. Okay, so we can only start with mosses, and then so once the mosses have given some oxygen, so then they can start with very low growing shrubs, like very hardy type of shrubs that would grow in Death Valley, tumbleweed type of shrubs, that can survive very extreme temperature shifts, very extreme cold temperatures and extreme hot temperatures. So, and then as they cultivate that, and gradually then they can, as soon as the oxygen level rises in the atmosphere, then they can grow smaller trees that are very adapted to very high altitudes. Coniferous needle trees that are very adapted to extreme temperatures. Very resinous type of trees. And as the oxygen level rises, they will grow more and more tree species. And then they will proliferate themselves, and then they will also evaporate out H2O. It will, evaporate out, not H2O, they contain H2O, they will evaporate out the H molecule, which is the water molecule, and will go out into the atmosphere, and then it will create a cycle of rainfall, and it will give the soil water, the necessary water for the plants to proliferate themselves, and then it will go on from there. And then eventually you see all of these valleys around Olympus Mons, for example. See all of those valleys gradually being populated with plants and trees, and you'll see forests on Mars, and the sky is going to become blue. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to be a lot lighter on Mars. We can bounce on there. When we jump, we can bounce. Not as much as on the moon, but it's sort of like between the moon and the Earth. But we will be a lot lighter. I think we will be like 20 or 30% lighter. That'd be good for me. And I think the species, if the species that he will bring in his Archenoa to Mars, I think if they make it through this terraforming process, and if they survive, the dogs and cats and rats and opossums and humans, and I don't know who else he's gonna bring, if they make it, then eventually they can be adapting themselves very gradually, very gradually. And then they go from there in evolution, and they will evolve and adapt themselves very gradually. I don't want people to misunderstand this and think that they can just put a domesticated animal into the wild. It doesn't work that way. You cannot do this. A domesticated animal is long adapted to living in the house, in a warm, climate-controlled house with people being fed and being taken care of. Okay? They cannot take care of themselves in the wild. They have evolved out of that ability. They also have become docile and trusting. And when you observe wild animals, for example, you watch National Geographic shows, you see wild animals being observed. You see that almost all the animals in the wild are full of fear and reactiveness and paranoia, self-protectiveness, and that's the only way they survived, because nature is very rough, very, very rough. The vegetable state, plant state of nature is very peaceful and doesn't contain pain, so they don't have a central nervous system. There's some self-protection going on as well inside. There's immune response going on. There is some form of reaction to the outside circumstances, but they don't feel pain as a mammal or a bird or a frog or a salamander feels, or fish also. Fish, I mean, it goes down, it fades out, at some point, we don't know, maybe. It fades out in a sea cucumber, maybe. But they too, the sea cucumbers, they're like sort of like a hybrid between plant and animal. And there are many hybrids between plants and animals. Many, many, many different species. And so it's just a very gradual shift from sentience to less sentience. But that doesn't give anyone the right to cut a tree down or hurt any kind of living organism with poisons or with violence or whatever. It's all alive and it wants to live. But it's much easier for those beings that are in vegetative state. So it becomes a problem when sentience is involved, when the animals begin an evolution to develop a central nervous system in particular. So, and I think the ego has, Dr. David Bohm and Jiddu Krishnamurti have been talking about this for 50 years in conversations. How far this goes back, when the ego developed, when humanity took a wrong turn. And I don't think that we can pin it to humanity. It goes much farther back towards our ancestors and long before they evolved into a hominid state, or even into a primate state. So this this evolving with the central nervous system that becomes more and more complicated brought with it more and more self-protection, more and more fight or flight, you know, more and more autonomous responses, but also cognitive responses. And the more it became cognitive, the more complicated it became. Then the ego started to become very convoluted, and it created problems with the self-image, the me. It took on a life on its own. It exceeded its normal self-protection abilities or function or purpose or function, and it went into an abstraction, and then it went into states of greed, and so on. And we see all of this happening in such complicated and complex forms. And so Jiddu Krishnamurti's appeal and Dr. David Bohm's appeal to the world was to get into the conversation. First of all, I recommend to people to listen to these conversations. This is vital. It will put you to sleep at night. It will work on you subconsciously as well. It will bring you to completely different shores in life. It will open up doors that you haven't even seen before that existed. It will bring us to completely new awareness levels. And with these new awareness levels, we will be able to transcend our self-image, greed, and ego states. And once we do that, that's what Friedrich Nietzsche called the superhuman. The general superhuman state is that state that Jiddu Krishnamurti was in. And he wanted so much to share that with us and to give that to us. He had a student, his name was U.G. Krishnamurti. They were not related, but U.G. Krishnamurti has become quite famous as well. U.G. Krishnamurti and Jiddu Krishnamurti, one generation apart. Jiddu was about 20 years older than U.G. They have come from the same school, thought school, the same philosophy school, which is the Theosophical Society. And U.G. comes from a very wealthy family from South India. And Jiddu was rescued from a very poverty-stricken family. He and his brother were rescued by Annie Besant, who was with some other people in charge of the Theosophical Society at that time, around the turn of the century, around 1910, 1908, something like this. So they discovered and they found him because his father was working for the Theosophical Society, and he brought his sons with him sometimes. And they saw that the sons were badly neglected, and they were anorexic. It stunted their growth, and Jiddu Krishnamurti said if Annie Besant hadn't saved their lives, they would for sure have starved to death, because their father was very selfish and didn't look after his children. So she rescued them. She fought very hard to get custody over those two boys. And she recognized very early on that Jiddu, the older of the two brothers, I don't know, a few years older than his brother, that he was that what they call the ultimate Messiah. He was the light bringer, he was the incarnation of Gautama Buddha and Vishnu and Krishna. So that was his new incarnation, visiting planet Earth in order to help. And she recognized that. That's quite remarkable. Very psychic. And one can see this. There are photos of the two brothers, and they were standing there holding hands. And there is such purity and such total humbleness and innocence in it. Just like a puppy dog. And she recognized this, and she said there was absolutely no self-concept in Jiddu already when he was 11 or 10 years old. No concept of self at all. You know, usually when you see children play, it's normal. That's a child will say, "This is mine, and I'm not gonna." And if another child comes and wants to take it, they will hold it. Jiddu was not like that. He would give it to the other. He would let other people kill him too. He would not defend himself. He wouldn't do anything. That's the state of the Buddha. There are people that will practice this, but that practice comes from ambition again. And as soon as it's ambition, it's not the real thing. Then it becomes a yoga practice. And then it becomes something that is, it's just a virtue. It's an ability, it's a skill. So yeah, there are people like this. But it doesn't come from the amygdala, it doesn't come from the inner core of understanding love. But Sri Krishnamurti, he said that, and that's very important what he said. He said that can be very easily misconstructed by society, and they will make a virtue out of complacency. And they'll say, oh, this is Buddhist, we have to be complacent, we have to, hold the other cheek or whatever. Martin Luther, the monk, around 1500, has completely also misconstructed this entire idea. He wanted to socialize things in a way where no one was allowed to have any wealth. The fundamentalists today that are worshipping Martin Luther, they completely don't understand the history of all of this. Those are the very ones that talk against communism. But Martin Luther was probably the primal communist in this way, because he was very angry at the Medici popes that were selling people paper tickets of salvation and making a lot of money with it. They were kind of like already new agey, capitalizing with their energy healing stuff, and there was nothing wrong with it. They were actually helping people, so. But yeah, it's a bit crooked, of course. But what Martin Luther did, that was that was instigating a war. He went to war. And so which one's better? Selling people some kind of redemption papers, and having and giving people real education on art and history, and helping people like Nicolaus Copernicus, and promoting their papers, and so promoting science, or a fundamentalist, the forefather of fundamentalism, promoting war and unempowerment, and hating the ones who are rich. So that's very clear to me, and that's what Friedrich Nietzsche recognized. He recognized that very sharply, and he said, this is unacceptable, this Lutheran agenda, this hate propaganda and warmongering and all of that. It's unacceptable. What kind of suffering that create? So people, I want to point this out to people, that they have to be very critical of Buddhism in that way. Buddhism is the most peaceful religion, there's no doubt about it. But there's always a hook in all religion. There's always a hook in it. The main hook is that people, they lean back and they let other people do everything, run everything. That's a problem, even if it's a religion running things. So even if it's not a person anymore, it's just an institution. Then it becomes even more dangerous. So then people, they lean back and they let this institution run things, and it becomes convoluted and it becomes corrupted. Because there's still people running it, right? And they all make new laws for themselves, for their own benefits, and in terms of exploiting others and so on, and then it keeps escalating. Okay, that's why we have to pay very close attention. And we cannot be hating those people who have money. That's not the way to go. Okay, we need to empower ourselves, and we need to become prosperous ourselves, and we need to look after ourselves. We need to go within ourselves and stop comparing ourselves to others and finding fault with others and thinking that they have so much, and being in a state of complaint. What each person needs to do is they need to tend to their own family. They need to make their own lives better. They need to get off any of the addictions. That's what keeps people really unempowered. An addiction to religion too. That causes unempowerment. That's not the way to go. And a lot of people, they think this is really cool, and that serves their corporate agenda to spread Buddhism, which isn't the way it is conducted, not in the sense of Gautama Buddha anymore, right? Because it promotes complacency. It promotes leaning back and not doing anything anymore, not taking responsibility anymore. Sri Krishnamurti was very firm about this. He said, each individual has responsibility. We have the responsibility all together to make things better. You make things better in your own lives, you're automatically adding to the well-being of energetically of the whole. And we will get along better with each other. We will have a common goal to make the world better. Each person can contribute something to that. And it's very important. And not hold the other cheek. Sri Krishnamurti said that in terms of, not so much in terms of his own self-defense, which, he was quite docile in that regard. So he had FBI people come after him. He would just do whatever they want to do. If they want to incarcerate, he'll go to prison. There'll be no objection whatsoever. But because of this Buddha nature, which he is the Gautama Buddha. That is what Gautama Buddha also taught us. That inwardness, to give up the struggle. But that is very easily misconstructed today into complacency. Like, oh, you need to just hold the other cheek, just do what Martin Luther, and they latch onto that bandwagon and hold the other cheek and just walk away if you see someone suffering. And that's the message that basically the fundamentalist religion and the Jehovah's Witnesses and many other religions and the Buddhist religion and probably Hinduism as well, that they promote. New Age can very, very easily fall into that trap as well if people don't pay attention. That's why I think it's very, very important that we add this, that we don't just do our complacency and breathing. It's very good, but that is the corporate agenda loves that. They want people to be not doing anything, just do your own work on yourself. I heard that my entire life. You work on yourself first, then you can help the other. No. As I work on myself, I am helping others. I am helping others, and that's also helping me. This goes hand in hand. This is cannot be separated from one another. That's one thing. I'm helping others, I'm helping myself, I'm loving others, I'm loving myself. In the moment I love others, I have love in me. Right? And it's a wonderful feeling. The moment I hate, I'm also in self-hate state. Because we are not separated. We are not dualistic. We may be internally fragmented, and that's what causes these states. But when we find back to congruence and wholesomeness within ourselves, then when we become attuned, as Teal Swan said, then there's no way we can walk away from someone that's being abused. And that applies to all living beings, and that applies to living beings exploited for commerce as well. You cannot continue to eat meat if you really care, if you become whole on the inside, if you bring your fragmented mental pieces back together. You cannot continue to support exploitation and corporatism anymore. Becoming whole food vegan, okay. Buying electric vehicles, supporting those companies that are pro-earth. A lot of them have become big, and when they become big, when corporations become big, it becomes a little bit more tricky. But that doesn't mean that we have to drop them, because we depend on them also. We depend on certain companies and computer companies, productions. Okay? We depend on them, and we need to work with them together. And if a better alternative arises, then we'll switch to the better alternative. But let's not make the mistake to say just because they have some flaws, I better go back to the one who has more flaws or something. Because I see people do this. This is corporate trickery again, and propaganda, and they got people hook, line, and sinker with that. Choose the productions that are doing the least harm. And if there are some that are doing terrible harm and they have a monopoly that makes people dependent on them in some way. If there's only one company, let's say, that makes, I'm just using this as an example, hypothetical example. If there was just one company that made phones and they were terrible, then what other options do we have? These are just examples, thought experiments, examples. Can we let go of the phone then? Or if you have two companies that makes phones, one is really terrible, the other one is better, choose the better one. And then someone says, yeah, but the better one, they have some problems too. And then some people will switch back to the worst one? No, you stay with the one that's better. And if it came to the point where it's unbearable, where it's ethically unacceptable, unsupportable, then you let go of the phone. Then you let go of that commodity, that comfort item. Then you have less opportunity to call people or get a job or whatever. People have done that with cars. There are people that switch to bicycles because before we had Elon Musk creating such amazing vehicles for us, even on a low budget vehicles that he specifically set out to do, that he put his own money in, 20 plus hours of work every day for us, so that we can have a better life, so that we can phase out fossil fuel. But he's hated, and people believe all that propaganda from the corporate agenda. They believe it because their friends believe it, and their friends believe it, and their societies and their church believe it, and so on. And then the churches get involved with the corporate agenda. They get paid, they take bribe money, they're corrupted. They will promote corporate agenda, propaganda, and it just goes from there. And it escalates. I've seen the most hideous things. I've heard people say unbelievably idiotic things because they heard that from their church. So that's why I'm saying, man, we each person, we have a responsibility. Right? We have the responsibility to look over other people's shoulders and to question people who push themselves up on certain legislative positions. Question these. I see these things happening very quickly. They even happen in local groups. We had a local group that was supposed to help the animals, and then it turns out that in the end, the people elbowed themselves into the legislative position of this completely new company. They destroyed the company right in the very beginning stages. Was that? I mean, the organization. Was there greed, and was there fundraising, and was there making fundraising the priority over the actual actions that they were supposed to do? And when Paul and I said, we need to go from door to door, and we need to talk to people to bring the animals in the house. Okay? And what did these people do? that pushed themselves into the top, into what right, first of all, did they take there to push themselves into the top legislative position, to say that they have the means to make decisions on what's going to be done? What right do they have? They don't have any right. But I tried to talk to them. We went even to lunch together. I tried everything. I did diplomacy. I tried everything. I really wanted to work with them. It was not possible. They were against everything we suggested. The real helping of animals. No, they don't want to. They don't want to go from door to door. No, they don't. No, they don't. No, they don't. And the lady with her leather bag and her expensive shoes. I'm not gonna name any names, but she couldn't be bothered with any of this. She just wanted to do fundraising, do the bureaucratic part of it, which is destroying that organization that hadn't even set foot yet into the world. So yeah, this is what's happening, and it's happening in all levels. It's happening all around the globe. The same thing in small groups and bigger groups and in nationwide groups. This thing is happening. It happened to Greenpeace on a massive scale. There are people that came into Greenpeace that have destroyed that organization completely. It's become a corporation now, profit oriented. That's how far they have taken it. It's heartbreaking. I will work for the animals with or without money. I will use any kind of thing that I have, my creativity. I use communication. I try to work on it, on my communication skills. I write blogs, books, make artwork, make videos. That's what I will do. That's what I will contribute to it. I live by example. I want other people to do the same thing. And then together we can make the world better. And some people have more financial means. They can do a lot more with that. Vin Diesel, for example, has a lot of money. He also he's a film producer also himself. He has made movies himself that have become very popular. And quite sensitive, actually. And so, he made movies before he became an action star. Those movies are very sensitive. So I want people like Vin Diesel, for example, just one example, to use their fame, to use their money, to use their circles, their friendship circles, the connections they have. They need to use this to make the world a better place. And they need to work with those people together who have something to say in this regard to make the world a better place. And then, things will pick up and become better. But the corporate agenda, they want people to stay fragmented away from each other. They want people to stay internally fragmented as well as fragmented socially. They don't want the big thinkers and shakers to come together with those people of financial means, because then they could persuade them, they could influence them, they could, wrong words, they could they could talk to them and they could convince them that something needs to be done in all of those areas, for planet Earth and the animals. And there are some celebrities that are using their fame and money to make things better. There are some. I want to see more and more people do something for the animals and the planet. People who have fame and leverage and money and connections and friendships that could promote healing on this planet. So a lot more can be done. I have the means I have. They are humble means, and I'm using those, and that is my responsibility to do. And my message to the world is that's also the responsibility of every single person.